Well, hello everybody, welcome along to Donington Park for the opening round of the 2024 Focus Cup Championship. The first of two visits to Donington Park over the course of the 2024 season. They'll be back here later on in the year, but that will be on the Grand Prix circuit. Two races to look forward to over the course of the day, and the cars are just heading round on their formation lap now. Qualifying was carried out this morning. That sets the grid for this first race of the day, and points are available for qualifying. The way that they line up then is as follows. The reigning champion Lewis Clark sits there on row 1 of the grid, and alongside him is Ian Mitchell. Row 2 of the grid sees Paul Taylor line up alongside Rob Mason's car. The third row of the grid, on the inside of row number 3, it's Simon Watts, who's finished 6th in the championship over the course of the last 2 years, and alongside him is Simon Waugh, who was 3rd in the championship last year. John Baker is next up, who's been a regular in this championship for a good few years. He's got Jonathan Ogden for company on row number 4. And row number 5, another man that was at the top end of the championship last year, Greg Saunders. He sits alongside returnee Andrew Weiss. The next row of the grid, which is row number 6, sees Gary Mitchell line up alongside Ian Graham, with the penultimate row of the grid being Matthew Croft and Sarah Hall. And at the back of the grid, he was quickest in qualifying, but it's a development car, and therefore it is a car that's going to be introduced into the championship next year. It's number 25, the man behind the championship, Simon Walton. All of the cars are diesel, other than Simon Walton's, which is a 2-litre petrol-engined car. And to say that is a car that is going to be introduced into the 2025 championship to run alongside the existing diesel-engine 2-litre TDCI engined machines. So it's bright, it's sunny, it's still quite chilly out there though. It does feel not quite spring-like at the moment, but we're looking forward to this first 15-minute race of the day, with a second race coming up later on today. And the way that it works for that second race is that positions in batches of 6 get reversed. So in other words, if you win this race, you'll start from 6th on the grid. If you finish 7th in this race, you'll actually start from 12th on the grid. Each batch of 6, they reverse. So say it's cold, it's chilly, just 10 degrees out there, but it's much better weather than we had yesterday here at Donington Park, where we had all 4 seasons over the course of a single day. However, for today, the weather looks much, much better. So it's the pink and the silver and the blue car of the reigning champion, Lewis Clark, that will line up on pole position. His pole position time was a 1 minute 25.651. And the car that lines up alongside him was almost 0.8 of a second slower at 26.455 from Ian Mitchell. His car is largely white and red and blue. Then it's the black and white and yellow machine of Paul Taylor. He was just a whisker away from getting himself on the front row of the grid. He was just 0.1 of a second slower than Ian Mitchell. Otherwise, he would have lined up on that front row of the grid. And a further just few thousandths off that was Rob Mason. So Lewis Clark had the advantage in qualifying, but for 2nd, for 3rd, for 4th, for 5th, they were all very close indeed. Ian Mitchell, Paul Taylor, Rob Mason, Simon Watts, nothing to choose between them over the course of the qualifying. So the grid is fully formed. The marshals, who as ever do a brilliant work here at Donington Park to make sure that everybody is where they need to be on the grid. They will leave the grid, the gate closes, and then we just need to wait for the green flag at the tail end of the field to indicate that the grid is set and we are ready to go and get the 2024 Focus Cup Championship underway. The green flag is waved, 15 minutes are on the clock. We're about to go racing for the first time in 2024. Red lights are on, and as the revs rise, the red lights go out now. It's not a bad start from the man on pole position. A little bit of wheel spin, you can see the puff of smoke, but he gets away well as Ian Mitchell tries to drag himself alongside, but I think is already going to just tuck in behind the race leader. Yep, so it's going to be Lewis Clark that leads as they head up towards Redgate Corner for the first time. Ian Mitchell is there in 2nd place. There's a spin further back through the order by the look of things, and trying to work his way back out of the gravel. Should just be able to scrabble his way back onto the circuit. But you can see that's already split the pack a little bit as they descend downhill through the Craner curves for the first time, and then start to work their way through the old hairpin. Lewis Clark leading the way. Ian Mitchell sitting there in 2nd place. It's Paul Taylor who's there in 3rd place. We're side by side further back. as by the look of things, Rob Mason has had a poor start. He, I think, should have been fourth on the grid, but it looks as though he's dropped down towards the tail end of the field, probably because of the problems at the first corner. But the rest of the pack all peeling their way through McLean's corner for the first time, still trying to build some temperature into the controlled Nankang tyres that all of the cars run in this championship. And you can hear them squealing their way round through the blind entry Coppice corner. There, I'm afraid we have lost one, and that looks like it might be Andrew Weiss possibly that's already out of the car, and it does look as though we might be going safety car already by the look of things. Yep, so the safety car is out there because of not necessarily the position of his car, but it may well be that others are stranded. Yes, and there we go, you see, we have got one that's stranded on the start finish line, I'm afraid to say. Can't quite identify that car from there, but we'll try and pick up on who doesn't come through at the end of the lap potentially. So all of the cars then working their way back behind the BMW safety car. Jonathan Ogden, I think, is the car that stopped on the start-finish line potentially. That matches the colours of his, which is black and white and green. So I think it must be the number 11 car that's stranded there. And of course, Andrew Weiss, I think, was potentially the other car that stopped down through the Craner curves. So that's why the safety car is out, not because of Andrew Weiss's car, because his was parked up against the wall and he's chatting to the marshals at the top of Hollywood. There's his car, which is reasonably safely out the way, but they will, I'm sure, take the opportunity to move that car further down the hill where there's more grass area. You can see there on the right-hand side of your screens. But the car that, without question, has brought about this early safety car period is Jonathan Ogden's. Yeah, I can see it's the number 11 now, and the marshals, as ever, we mentioned them at the start of the footage, doing a brilliant job of clearing the incident. Thankfully, the car is able just to be pushed out of harm's way, so pushing down towards pit lane entry, then pushing backwards into the pit lane, gets that car out of the way, which may well mean, potentially, once they've radioed in to say that the car is out of harm's way, we could possibly see the lights go out on the safety car, even at the end of this lap. We'll have to wait and see. The clock still continues to tick, of course, so this does count towards the race. So Lewis Clark will be the man as and when the lights go out on the safety car. Will have to control the pace of the field, and then it's up to him as to when he wants to go. But once he's pressed the accelerator and started to go, he can't then lift off again in reality. And there's also no overtaking until they get to the start finish line. You can be alongside, you can't be ahead. So still trying to build a bit of temperature into the control Nankang tyres again. So they were only just starting to come up to temperature. They lost a bit of that temperature whilst they are behind the safety car. Ian Graham, you can see, yeah, lights are off on the safety car already, so the safety car accelerates its way in towards the pit lane, so it's up to Lewis Clark as to when he wants to go. I'd imagine just on the entrance to the Robert chicane is when he'll go. And yep, there he goes now, any second now, and off he goes, tries to get a good restart. Ian Mitchell tries to go with him, so with 11 minutes of the race still to go, we're back under full racing conditions. Paul Taylor still sitting there in third place. It looks as though it's Simon Waugh who's there in fourth position, so he's had a good first couple of laps, up from sixth to fourth place, and you can see those top four now have broken away from the car that's there in fifth place, which is Simon Watts. Simon Watts coming under attack as John Baker dives up the inside and squeezes his way through. Greg Saunders is trying to stick his elbows out as well, and then it is the car of Rob Mason. So they head down through the Craner curves, and it still looks as though John Baker hasn't quite fully got the job done as yet. So it's still Simon Watts that's clinging on to that position, I think, the number 23 car. Yep, so in towards the braking area for the old hairpin. Simon Watts, John Baker. Then the next of the cars, which is next up. And at the back of that little queue is going to be Rob Mason. But our race leader looking to try and gap the car behind now. Lewis Clark was quicker than everybody else in qualifying by about, what, 7/10 of a second. And is looking to try and build some advantage now that we are back to full course racing. Ian Mitchell in second place has got his hands rather full still, hasn't he? He can't shake off Paul Taylor. There goes the number 34 car, that's in the hands of Greg Saunders. He's still coming under attack from Rob Mason. Rob Mason equally as much has got Simon Walton's car behind. That's the development car, Simon Walton, the petrol engine machine, which they're hoping once that car's developed, it'll be around about 4 to 5 seconds quicker than the diesel engine cars. Goes Simon Walton in the Mark 3.5, the facelifted Mark 3. Squeezes his way through, but it does look as though potentially we might be going back to safety car again. So quite what's happened there, I'm not sure. So I think We possibly might have lost Simon Waugh somewhere. There he is. Yeah, so it's Simon Waugh who's gone missing. That's coming out of the old hairpin and up towards Schwantz Curve. And his car has stopped on the right-hand side of the circuit. The left as we look at it on our screens. And that's a real shame for the man who was third in the championship last year, Simon Waugh. He did claim wins as well, Simon Waugh, throughout the course of the season. He claimed a win at Brands Hatch. He took another win at Snetterton. He did the double up when we went back to Brands Hatch. And he finished off the season also with a win on the second day of racing at Brands Hatch. So what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins over the course of the 2023 championship season. So for the second time we go safety car, just as Lewis Clark was looking to try and break away. That will certainly help that pack in 5th, 6th and 7th and 8th place that were all squabbling, because the top 4 had broken away, hadn't they? So John Baker and Simon Walton, Greg Saunders, Rob Mason will all be able to catch back up again with the pack, and Gary Mitchell, who's been a front runner in this championship in the past. I think 2 times a runner-up, Gary Mitchell, in the early days of Focus Cup Championship, if memory serves me correctly. So hopefully just a short pause behind the safety car. Marshals may, under the instructions of race control, choose to push Simon Waugh's cars back from where it's come to rest closer to the barriers. Hopefully it is able to be pushed. If not, then we'll need the requirement of a recovery truck to come out and get him out of harm's way, and of course that's going to take longer, so we'll lose more time of the racing. Still work to be done though, whilst they sit behind the safety car. Lots of weaving from side to side to try and maintain a little bit of tyre temperature. Make sure you keep brake temperature as well, which is going to be critical in these cars. All of the cars are allocated 4 tyres for the weekend. Spare tyres can be used in the case of any tyre damage or punctures, but in reality it's just 4 tyres that you get for qualifying and for the 2 15-minute races, and it's a very cheap way of going racing, the Focus Cup Championship. So diesel engine machines. Simon Walton peels to the pit lane. That doesn't surprise me. I say that is the development car. Simon had started off the back of the grid and had started to mix it with the front runners, but chatting to him yesterday, the man behind the championship, he did say, he doesn't want to get in the way of the main championship. He's out there just to develop this car prior to its introduction for the 2025 championship season. So the one thing he doesn't want to do is start to get involved with squabbles with those that are in for the full season, that are the paying customers in reality. And Simon, I would imagine, is no issues with that car, probably just parking it up because he's learnt a bit more about it. They'll change a few things again and they'll have another go and start off the back again later on over the course of the day. So the field of cars down through the Craner curves. Donington Park as ever looking pretty much immaculate. The grass isn't quite as well trimmed as usual, largely because of the awful weather we've had so far this year. They just can't get the maintenance vehicles onto the grass to trim it all properly. Where cars have been running wide coming out of corners, again because we've had so much rain, it is a little bit muddy if you run wide coming out of the corners. You should stay within the confines of the circuit, of course, those either being the white lines or the red and white painted curbs. If you run into the green painted curb, as you can see in front of you, then you'll be on track limits there. If you put any part of the tyre, the contact patch, beyond the red and white curb, you are deemed to have gone outside of the circuit. Do that too many times, you'll pick yourself up a penalty. That is looked at by race control. Safety car will be in this lap, is the information we've received, and bang on cue, lights are out in the safety car. Simon Waugh's car has been, I would imagine, pushed closer towards the barriers, which means that Lewis Clark has got it all to do again. Are we going to see the car in 5th place? John Baker get a better restart this time through. It looks like it's a very good restart from Lewis Clark, who's built already a 4 or 5 focus length gap between himself and Ian Mitchell, who is there in 2nd place, but coming under the cosh from Paul Taylor, and it's the top 3 that have broken away this time through, because Simon Watts was a little bit slower. A change for 2nd, possibly. No, Ian Mitchell just fends off the attack from Paul Taylor, who can't quite squeeze his way through, but he's got a bit more momentum coming out of Redgate Corner. Can he squeeze his way up the inside as they head in towards Hollywood? Well, he's tried to prise the door open, side by side through Hollywood, side by side through the 2nd part of the Craner curves, and it does look as though the job has been done. Paul Taylor in the Power Max backed car goes through to pick up 2nd position. Ian Mitchell is down into 3rd place, bounces over the curbs as he exits the old hairpin and then starts to power his way uphill in towards Schwantz Curve and McLean's Corner. So down a gear, I would imagine, pitch the car in towards the right-hander at McLean's Corner, and then you climb uphill in towards Coppice. You can't see the apex when you get there, so you turn in blind to where the apex is, grab the first apex, which is there, don't worry about the 2nd. There's a good fight going on between Simon Watts and John Baker. That's going to be for 4th and for 5th position. It's just the white and orange car of Simon Watts that lies ahead, the number 23 machine. But you can see tucked right behind him is John Baker, the blue machine, weaving around one way and the other just to try and distract Simon Watts. But Simon will be more than wise to that, having finished 6th in the championship over the course of the last couple of years. John Baker was 4th in the championship last year, having finished 4th the year before as well. So these drivers know each other well. You can see the race leader getting away, can't you? Lewis Clark getting away largely because of the squabbling that's going on behind. Paul Taylor now under attack from Ian Mitchell, who's keen to try and reassert himself back into 2nd place. Can't do anything about it at Redgate Corner though, so he's going to have to sit behind Paul Taylor as they head downhill through the Craner curves. They're on lap number 7 at the moment. Lewis Clark, last time through the race leader, also set the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far, 1 minute 26.328. Not quite down into the 1 minute 25s, which is where he was in qualifying. He was the only driver to get into the 1 minute 25 second bracket in qualifying, but you can see he has now opened up the gap between himself and the squabbling pair behind for 2nd and for 3rd position. The gap is almost 2 seconds now. Round through McLean's corner yet again. Paul Taylor still managing to hang on to that 2nd place. Ian Mitchell not quite as close as he was at Redgate Corner, but I would say watch out for Simon Watts in 4th place and for John Baker, because they were fighting. They're working together a bit more now, and they're starting to catch that pair ahead. So we haven't quite got 4 cars fighting for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th at the moment, but they are slowly edging their way up there, and there's not a great deal more time in which to do it, because the race leader will be going on to his penultimate lap of the race this time through. Flicking their way through the right and the left flicks at the Robert chicane. There goes Greg Saunders. He's sitting there in 6th position. He's still got Rob Mason behind him in the largely yellow and white and black machine. Up towards Redgate Corner, starting the penultimate lap of the race. Paul Taylor still in 2nd position. Ian Mitchell still in 3rd, but Ian with a better exit coming out of Redgate Corner gets himself right onto the boot lid again of the 2nd place car. All of these cars absolutely identical, all prepared by the same team as well. So Simon Mason's team based up in the northeast. And again, just running wide there. Paul Taylor suffering with a little bit of understeer, struggling to get the car in towards the apex, which allows Ian Mitchell to get a better exit again as he heads out of the old hairpin. And now that they're squabbling, you can see all of the time the orange and the white car, number 23 Simon Watts, beginning to close in. So we've nearly got a trio formed now for 2nd, for 3rd and for 4th. Somebody's going to miss out on a podium here. So uphill towards Coppice Corner. All of this playing beautifully into the hands of the race leader, the reigning champion Lewis Clark, who's just romping away at the moment. Lead advantage now 2.2 seconds when they started this lap. And as they start to head down the hill, the short hill, in towards the braking area, it does look as though Ian Mitchell is very much under pressure now for the podium spot. Braking a little bit late though with Simon Watts. Is he going to make the corner? Might he have to shortcut through the gravel? Yeah, he's very slow. He's quick going in, he's slow coming out, and you can see just how much he's fallen away now and right into the clutches of John Baker. So slow exiting the Robert chicane. He was looking for 3rd. He might be down to 5th as a result of that, because John Baker's got the inside line. Is he going to squeeze his way through? Yes, he does. So that was Simon Watts' small mistake going in towards the Robert chicane, cost him quite dear. And he has now dropped from 4th down to 5th, having looked to try and grab a podium spot. So they are on their last lap of the race. Down through the Craner curves and in towards the old hairpin for the final time. Lewis Clark looking good for the win, sideways in towards the old hairpin there. Really hustling the car was John Baker. You can see the tail end of the car just sliding around on him, and that will have compromised his exit speed a little bit. Can Simon Watts squeeze his way through? He's not going to do it through Schwant's curve. He's not going to have the opportunity to do it through McLean's corner. And now opportunities are running out because there's only Coppice Corner and the final corner to go. So clock as good as at 0. Through Coppice for the final time. Simon Watts needs to get a good run coming out of here to try something, and we've got problems I think in the background. I can hear some gravel as though somebody had gone off, and we have. It's Greg Saunders all through the gravel trap at Coppice Corner. He should be able to dig his way back out, but he's not going to finish 6th, that's for sure. And the first win of the 2024 Focus Cup Championship season is going to go the way of the reigning champion. Lewis Clark comes through to claim the win. In 2nd position, it will be Paul Taylor who finishes in 2nd place. Ian Mitchell will finish in 3rd position. Then it's John Baker who finishes in 4th, with Simon Watts right on his bumper to finish in 5th position. And 6th place will go the way of Rob Mason. And then I think it's Gary Mitchell who will finish in 7th position in the end. And completing the top 8, despite the gravelly moment, will be Greg Saunders. Last few cars come over the start-finish line, and completing the top 10 will be the car of Ian Graham. And then I don't think we've had 10th place through to take the checkered flag just as yet. It was in the hands of Matthew Croft. 10th position, and just to confirm, he has come across the line and he will finish in 10th place. So for Lewis Clark, that gets his championship defence off to the best possible start. He didn't win here at Donington Park last year when we started the championship season. He managed a 4th and a 5th in the opening 2 rounds of the championship, but claimed wins at Snetterton. He took a double. He also claimed double wins at Alton Park and won the penultimate race of the year at Brands Hatch as well, so 5 wins for him last year. He kicks off this season with a win in the very first round. We can confirm the results for you then following the first round of the Focus Cup Championship, the first of 2 races for them. It was a win for Lewis Clark. In second place was Paul Taylor, 2 3/4 seconds behind in the end, and Ian Mitchell was there in 3rd place. John Baker was 4th, ahead of Simon Watts and Rob Mason. And then in 7th place was Gary Mitchell from Greg Saunders, followed by the number 27 car of Ian Graham. Completing the top 10 was Matthew Croft. As we go outside of the top 10, Sarah Hall was next up, and then the rest of the cars from Simon Walton backwards all retired or had problems and did not make the finish of the race. So Sarah Hall was the last of the finishers. So that's it for Focus Cup. We will be back later on today, though. We're scheduled to see the Focus Cup cars back out on the circuit around about 20 to 5 this afternoon. So thank you for joining us for round 1 of the championship. We'll see you later on today for round 2. Until then, it's goodbye.